In this week's drive, we go racing on a regular racetrack and still crash, get caught up in a powerboat traffic jam, watch a unique sale of unique cars, and catch a former world champion as he gets back on top, for now. All this and more in this week's Drive. We start in Sao Paulo in Brazil, also known as the New York of South America, a bustling city of 18 million, most of them passionate about sport. Not just football, in a country that's won the World Cup 5 times, but also motorsport. Brazil produced people like Ayrton Senna, Nelson Piquet and Emerson Fittipaldi, the youngest man ever to win the Formula One World Championship.
I think today is our 10th launch, and we are in Brazil. Maybe one of the most important nations in our series because of the passion it brings to the sport and the history of motorsport in Brazil.
So far, A1 Grand Prix has announced 16 of the 25 national teams that will race in the inaugural season of the World Cup of Motorsport. With only 9 spaces left on the grid, the competition is fierce between 14 countries, all vying to secure a space for their team. Fittipaldi and footballer Ronaldo are the public face of Brazil's A1 entry. At the launch ceremony, Ronaldo talked of his pride in being given the opportunity to represent his country again at an international level.
First of all, it's a big challenge to represent Brazil once again, but in a different sport, and one with a tradition just as big as football. And I hope to win this challenge. I'm very proud to be part of this new competition, and I hope to be able to translate this great desire to the Brazilian fans so that the whole Brazilian nation will support our car and we will achieve great success.
Fittipaldi is pleased that drivers will be selected solely on ability, and so up-and-coming men and women can have a realistic hope of making it to the top levels of motorsport.
If you think about in Grand Prix racing or Formula One, you only have like 3-4 seats that you can win available for the whole world. And through the A1, we are going to create in Brazil a new dream for the youngsters to dream one day to drive A1, and they know the access will be much easier. We'll be there available for any Brazilian driver that's good, that has the qualities, that has the performance to join us. Possible how many potential world champions are driving now around us here in São Paulo, and we don't know, but we have to find them. And I think A1 we have a good chance to find them.
Ronaldo and Fittipaldi bring with them a potential 182 million fans with the involvement of the world's 6th largest country.
I think it is a great opportunity for Brazil, being one of the countries with a large history in motorsports. It is also a country that has a fantastic generation of world champions in Formula One, with Emerson, with Ayrton and with Nelson, and I think that A1 will definitely become a very, very patriotic project for Brazilians, and is something they will get deep into their hearts. It's a country that loves sport and has a huge passion to win, and I'm sure that A1 will benefit from the project here in Brazil. Also, they have a great car, a most beautiful car.
Designed around the concept of a level playing field in motor racing, 25 national drivers will compete in identical cars, relying wholly on their skill. Unlike Formula One, in A1 there are no electronic driver aids. The 12-race program begins on September the 25th at Brands Hatch in the UK. Over in California, the NASCAR drivers were tackling just one of 2 road race tracks as opposed to their more usual oval raceways. 3 laps into the race, Dale Earnhardt made contact with Mike Bliss and cut his right rear tyre. That sent Earnhardt into the wall, although his crew made repairs and he was able to continue.
When you cut one down, you're on the rim. Yep, that's exactly what happened.
Halfway through the race, on the 55th lap, Casey Kane tangled with Brian Vickers and slammed into the wall, bringing out the 4th caution flag. Then on lap 59, as the cars made their way round a corner much tighter than they're used to, PJ Jones and Kyle Petty got closer than they'd like. After they'd made contact, Brian Simo pulled Carl Edwards into the melee.
Yeah, in the 33. Yeah. Drove him right into it. Right here, Jimmy's
With 42 laps left, Jimmy Johnson made contact with Dale Jarrett as he tried to pass and spun. Johnson finished 36th, and combined with Greg Biffle's 14th place finish, his bad day cost him the series lead that he'd held since the 4th race of the season at Atlanta. Biffle now leads by 22 points heading into the next race at Daytona. In the end, it was Tony Stewart who took his 20th NASCAR victory and his 4th on a road race track. He won despite a failing gearbox that jumped out of gear, so he had to steer one-handed in 3rd and 4th. Stewart started 7th, worked his way up to 2nd and pushed Gordon hard before the leader slowed. From then on, the 2002 champion was easily the fastest car on the track. For the 5th time in 6 years, a car was knocked out of the Champ Car Grand Prix of Cleveland after a crash in the Burke Lakefront Airport course's famed first turn. Ryan Hunter-Reay and rookie Bjorn Wertheim made contact, and Hunter-Reay was out of the race with a broken front suspension. Race officials had said that they would place an orange construction barrel in the opening turn to help stop drivers from diving to the inside at the end of the opening straight. However, the barrel wasn't there. Race director Tony Cotman decided to trust the drivers to behave. A short time later, the 6'1" former Jaguar Formula One driver Justin Wilson cut the turn too tightly and spun into Mario Dominguez. Wilson kept his car running, turned it round and went on to finish 7th. Mario also regained the track, but his day was to get worse. Dominguez got into trouble again on lap 38. After the contact, he limped around and into the pits with a broken wishbone to confirm the damage was too extensive to repair quickly, and his day was over. Then on lap 50, Bjorn Wertheim understeered off the racing line and slammed into the wall, and his day was over too. Paul Tracy avoided trouble to win for the first time since 1993. It was a big difference from a year earlier when Tracy was hit from behind in the treacherous first turn and knocked out of the race just seconds after it began. Starting from pole position, Tracy finished 3.1 seconds ahead of AJ Allmendinger, who was stretchered from the track after a crash in qualifying. He was cleared to race by medical personnel just hours before the start, taking his best finish in 2 years. Tracy earned 31 championship points and leads the series with 128, one more than defending champion Sébastien Bourdais. For the start of the Formula 4-stroke third round, the sea off Douglas and the Isle of Man was calm, while the start itself was anything but. At least 5 boats collided as they all became crushed together in the run to the start. Fortunately, no boat was seriously damaged and all could carry on racing, but the mayhem ensured that there was an unlikely early leader, Claygate, crewed by Mel Streak and Martin Marsh. Their surprise didn't last into turn 1. Like several navigators, Marsh had trouble seeing the first buoy and made several drastic direction changes. Claygate were third into the turn when disaster struck. They hit the wakes of the boats in front and the boat shot out of control. The crew were flung out of the boat and narrowly avoided being hit by the rest of the fleet. Many boats were forced to stop, while those in front or who had taken a wider line gained places. Within a couple of laps, Fat Boy Racing was in the lead, having overtaken Build Base and maintained their lead despite a challenge from Ray Marine, who'd worked their way out from last place. Despite having a speed advantage, Ray Marine driver Shelley Jory couldn't catch Rob Lister in Fat Boy Racing, who held on to claim his first victory in his 3-year career in the series. An unprecedented auction of historic Ferraris and Maseratis was held at Maranello recently, and Ferrari loaned their new logistics centre building for the event. Included were some of the most celebrated Ferraris, including the F2004 driven by Michael Schumacher in the first 5 Grand Prix races of 2004, all of which he won. Also up for sale by Sotheby's were 40 rare road and competition cars from the 1930s to the present day, as well as road and racing memorabilia. Though Ferrari's F1 cars have appeared at auctions before, Bonham sold Schumacher's 2000-year car in Monaco last year for £1 million to a European collector. This is the first time Ferrari has offered a car from the past season.
We have the Ferrari Formula One 2004, which is a splendid car, a car selling now in 2005, only 1 year afterwards. That's unique. But the car behind me here, the 412S, as you can see, that's a beautiful car coming from across the Atlantic, being sold here in Italy. And there's another spectrum of nice range cars. There's a car over there, a Maserati, which maybe in value is not the most expensive car, but it used to belong to the Shah of Iran, so history-wise, amazing too. It's a wide range of cars.
Ferrari built this unique 412S hot rod for American racing, one of the first Ferraris with disc brakes, using an engine from the single-seater Indianapolis Special. It was the most powerful Ferrari of its time and was raced twice by Phil Hill in 1958. The next year, Richie Ginther won a race at 181 miles an hour. The Shah of Persia was a great Maserati enthusiast and was instrumental in the creation of the 5000 GT, of which just 34 were built over 7 years. He wanted a very special Gran Turismo, powered by the 5-litre race engine of the obsolete 450S Sports Racer, a car that would be in keeping with his high status. This car became known as the 5000 GT Shah of Persia.
The low value of the sale is in the region of, and I haven't calculated it now completely, but it's in the region of $40 million euros, $50 million, a bit more even. And we are thinking that, we're going to be selling quite a good amount of that, so, it's going to be a spectacular sale.
Under the body very similar to the racing cars, the 250 GT Coupe of 1956 was Ferrari's first true road car, and further road cars, derived from the long wheelbase 250 GT chassis, followed. When Ferrari first launched the short wheelbase 250 GT, it was available with alloy and steel bodies, the latter referred to as Lusso, being intended as a road car. Attendees at the sale also saw the Ferrari Research Centre at Maranello, usually off limits.
Auctions are held all over the world, but we have never had one here in Maranello, the home of Ferrari. It is an interesting experience and an emotional experience to see these historically important cars that will pass from one collector to another, but will remain part of the heritage of our firm.
Valued at €1 million, this unique Enzo Ferrari, number 400, was auctioned to raise funds for victims of the Asian tsunami, as suggested by Pope John Paul shortly before he died, and carries an engraved plate that reads, "This Enzo, the only one in the history of Ferrari, is a sign of solidarity for those that suffer, inspired by a great Pope, John Paul II." Driven by Phil Hill and Olivier Gendebien, this is the last front-engined car to win overall at Le Mans, impeccably documented, incomparable and absolutely unique. It is not one of the usual classic car auction houses such as Bonham's or Christie's that was chosen to conduct the sale. Sotheby's, who closed down its car department in 1999, landed the job thanks to the friendship between Ferrari MD Jean Todt and the auction house's American CEO, William Ruprecht. And Todd took an active role in the auction.
And he said, "What about an auction in Maranello?" I said, "Fantastic." So he said, "I will give you lots of automobilia." I said, "That's not enough." And he said, "Okay, I will give you some cars." So this car, the Enzo. And I said, "This is not enough. I will have to add some private cars." He says, "Okay, but all the cars will have to be certified by our team."
Aside from the Enzo and Schumacher's car, most of the cars and memorabilia belong to private collectors, mostly in Europe, North America and the UK. 80 lots of memorabilia included a steering wheel, complete with gearshift paddles, front wings, engine covers, entire engines and gearboxes, even early Le Mans trophies, and crash helmets used by drivers such as Eddie Irvine and Gilles Villeneuve.
Almost everything. Very interesting is the 250 GT, and it's tremendous. The Formula One car, the 2004, it's the best you can buy.
And how does he feel about this auction? Because it's a bit different from the usual ones.
Absolutely different, and I find it's fantastic because you never have the chance to see this logistic center here inside. So it's fantastic.
Not surprisingly, Jean Todt was on hand at Ferrari's first ever in-house auction. The Hill Gendebien Le Mans winner is the only 4-litre Testarossa ever built.
5,200,000. Any advance at 5,200,000? If it is at 6,200,000, If we're all done at 6.200.000 euro, se non ci sono più di offerte, a 6.200.000, 6.200.000 euros, venduto. Il lotto 120 euros.
The most expensive car of the auction, the 1958 412S, raced by Hill and Ginther, and with an estimated value of as much as €10 million, failed to sell as the owner didn't accept an offer of €7.1 million.
7.100.000, se non ci sono più di offerte, at 7.100.000, are we all done? 740.000, 740.000 with me. 60 with me, 760.000 still, 760.
The car that Michael Schumacher drove to victory in 5 Grand Prix last year fetched €2.4 million. But to protect its secrets, the car will have to remain at Ferrari until January next year. Until then, the anonymous buyer will be able to drive it at Ferrari's private track. The F2004, the 50th Ferrari Formula One, crushed the competition with 16 Grand Prix wins and 14 fastest laps. Round 5 of the Speedway Grand Prix season, and the riders were back in Copenhagen. There was copious support for the Danish riders, including Hans Andersen, at what turned out to be an event dogged by controversy. 2 of the home riders, 2 unrelated Pedersens, seemed determined to make the early headlines. Bjarne for getting in a horrible tangle right at the start of the opening heat, and Nicky, 3rd in the championship table coming into this event, had trouble in Heat 7 on the tricky track. Worryingly, Bjarne's mishap seems to have set the tone for the night. Polish rider Tomasz Krasnowski was another victim of the temperamental tape in Heat 10. At one stage, Heat 14 looked as though it might be the final race of the night. A huge delay built up as first Greg Hancock, then Lee Richardson, following the restart, found themselves fouled up at the start line. Anxious moments for Speedway great Ole Olsen, now the Speedway Grand Prix race director. Happily, the starting tape problem was fixed and the racing continued. That permitted safe passage for most of the big names as world champion Jason Crump drew lane 3 for the second semi-final. With the big points now at stake, his pick left him in last place, and his tally for the night was just 12 points. This was hopelessly inadequate as Tony Rickardsson was in top form. After tucking in behind Antonio Lundbach in the semi, the Swede did in the final what he had done throughout the rest of the evening, totally dominate the proceedings. Another 25-point haul puts Rickardsson well on course for world title number 6. Performance of the night, aside from Rickardsson? That honour is probably due to Lundbach. The young Swede finished 3rd behind American Greg Hancock. Rickardsson now has 120 points after 5 events, 45 more than Crump, his nearest challenger. Nicky Pedersen is 3rd with 68. Next up, it's the Czech Republic Grand Prix in Prague. After rounds in Japan and America, the World Outdoor Trials Championship returned to Europe for its busiest period of the year, the Grand Prix of Andorra starting a 4-week run that will see 3 rounds in quick succession. The early battle of the day was between Takahisa Fujinami and Doug Lamkin, with Lamkin finishing the first lap in the lead with a 2-point cushion over his Montesa teammate. Adam Raga and Albert Kabastani were a further point behind Fujinami. Lamkin had a confident showing through the first 4 river sections, but he was soon to lose his advantage as he made 2 mistakes in sections 5 and 6. Even so, it was only an incredible closing lap by Raga that was enough to prevent Dougie taking the win. A mere 10 marks dropped in the second lap by Raga, compared to the 13 dropped by Lamkin, was sufficient to tie the competition and decide the win on the most number of clean sections, and that saw Raga prevail by a single section. Another Spaniard, Kabastani of the Sherco team, and reigning outdoor world champion Fujinami of the Montesa HRC squad, battled for the remaining podium place, won eventually by Kabastani. Raga's victory comes after a poor performance in the previous round in America, and now he's back in a position to challenge for the championship. However, despite Raga's victory in Andorra, Lamkin leads the championship on 111 points. In a highly unlikely scenario, Raga, Kabastani and Fujinami are all tied in second place in the standings, 2 marks adrift of Lamkin on 109 points apiece. The Goodwood Festival of Speed is a unique gathering of world champion drivers and riders, rock stars and glittering machinery. It's held in the glorious settings of Goodwood House, home to the Earl of March, which is situated in the English county of Sussex. Weather conditions for most of the weekend for this, the 13th running of the festival, were ideal, dry and bright. Around 150,000 fans visited over the 3 days, eager for the chance to get close to their motorsport heroes. From 1909, the mighty Blitzen Benz has a 21-litre 4-cylinder engine and set the world land speed record at 135 miles an hour. The Venturi Fetish electric sports car reaches 170 kilometres an hour and is already on sale at a price of €540,000. One of the most popular attractions for the fans were the Formula One cars. Among those taking part this year were the Ferrari team, along with Jenson Button, Fernando Alonso and David Coulthard. Emerson Fittipaldi, fresh from launching his A1 GP team, drove his old Lotus 72. Takuma Sato wisely used last year's BAR Honda to road and grass test his Michelin tyres.
It's good for people to get so close to the action. You know, there's stuff here that I haven't seen before, and it's good. You know, I'm not so sure about riding one of these things up the garden path, but you know, we'll roll up, and it's a great event. Catch up with a lot of people, so good to be here.
Mick was reunited with one of his title-winning Honda two-strokes. 17 times world champ Giacomo Agostini rode one of the late Barry Sheen's Yamaha races.
If you get the opportunity to drive the cars you do and meet the drivers that you haven't seen probably in your life but have read about them, find yourself on the same scorecard, it's fantastic.
From the pages of racing history came the Works Mercedes-Benz 300 SLR, in which Sterling Moss won the Mille Miglia exactly 50 years ago. His navigator, journalist and world sidecar champ Dennis Jenkinson died in 1997.
The car means an awful lot to me, and being here with so many enthusiastic people coming along on this fabulous family day out, I think is wonderful. But Charles March, I think he's done an incredible job. As his grandfather, the Duke of Richmond, would be very proud.
Britain's 2 current Formula One drivers are Red Bull Racing's David Coulthard and Jenson Button of the BAR Honda team.
It's an enjoyable event. It's nice to be able to wander around and mingle and as a fan of the sport, look at the different cars.
It's absolutely rammed. I mean, I've never seen this many people here. And looking around at the cars, there's a Jensen Interceptor parked over there actually, which I might go and have a look at, which I'm a big fan of. So yeah, it's good to be here, and there's lots to see and do.
Having been a serious contender with a string of podiums last year, Button has had much slimmer pickings this year, scoring just 5 points by mid-season. In contrast, Renault's Spanish young gun Fernando Alonso has won 5 races so far this year and leads the championship.
It's good, obviously. We don't have this close contact with the fans in the Grand Prix, and it's a good feeling.
Takuma Sato is having an even more dismal year than his British teammate, but he remains hopeful.
I come back to Europe after being in America, and I think it's going to be very different for the Honda team. Yesterday's test drive at Jerez went very well, and my car is very competitive. I want to make a good comeback in the second half of this season and tackle it race by race.
Goodwood, the 3-day garden party, is motor racing's equivalent of Ascot, Henley and Wimbledon all rolled into one. So whether you're looking for a new drive, falling off in unison, or just getting all tangled up, so you stay on track and up to speed, make sure you catch next week's Drive.